Alright, here's number 1 from the released items 2018. It says if p of x is equal to x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3, and p of 3 equals 0, what is the factor of p of x? Select all that apply. Alright, so there's a couple new things here that we haven't really seen this year, but there also are some things that we've seen. So first of all, this right here, p of 3 equals 0. That means if you input 3 for x, right? That means if x equals 3, then the output p of x equals 0, right? So that's basically what it's saying. So if the input is 3, the output is 0. So which one of these, if you put in 3, will you get out 0? And the answer is that one, right? Because 3 minus 3 is 0. So that's the one that that we know right off the bat, just because they tell us p of 3 equals 0. Okay, so we check that one right away, and that's one answer that we know for sure, and that's easy, right? But that also tells us that this x minus 3 is divisible by this. Okay, and so we can set up what's called polynomial long division. This is the part that's new. We can divide that by okay, so we're actually dividing this polynomial by this polynomial. Okay, and kind of like we used to do long division before with numbers, it works very similar. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to look at this first term here with this first term here. All right, so we're going to say, let me actually do a different color, I'll use green. So we're going to say, okay, what's x cubed divided by x? I'm going to say x cubed divided by x, right? Remember, what we do when we divide is we subtract the exponents. So it'll be x to the, and remember there's an invisible 1 right here, right? So it's going to be 3 minus 1, which equals 2, right? So we get x squared. So that x squared is what we put right here, okay? This number goes right here. Once we get that, now we multiply this times these, okay? And this is just like regular long division. That's what we do. Once we divide, then we multiply, and we put those numbers underneath. So like x squared times x is x cubed, right? And then x squared times negative 3 is negative 3x squared. Okay, so I did this times this, and that got me this. And then I did this times this, and that got me this, right? Okay, so now what we want to do is subtract, just like regular long division. So I'm going to subtract here. So I'm basically going to make this a negative, and I'm going to change this to a positive. Okay. And so then these cancel out. And actually, these cancel out too. So then what's left is this comes down, right? So it'll be negative x. And let me just actually bring this down to 0x squared. Okay. So yeah, actually let's take away the 0x squared. We don't actually need that. Okay, so I'm bringing down the minus x, and then I'm going to bring down plus 3. Okay? And so now, instead of focusing on this, because that's gone, now I'm focused on this. Okay? So I'm going to say, okay, well, it's negative x divided by x, right? I'm just focusing on those first two terms. So just like we did here, we're going to do the same thing with those two terms. So I'm going to take negative x divided by x. Okay, so once again, I'm doing this divided by this. So first term divided by first term. And so basically that just equals negative 1, right? Because they cancel each other out. Or you can think of these are both 1s. 1 minus 1 is 0. Anything to 0 power is 1, right? Except for you have a negative divided by positive, so that equals a negative. Alright, so that negative 1, I'm going to put right here. Okay. And you can, if you want, you can think of this as like a 0 x squared. That's what I was going to put something there earlier. But you don't, 0 x squared is just 0, so you don't need that. Alright, so remember, once we get that number on top, this number here, now we're going to multiply that by this and by this, right? So let's do that. Alright, so I'm going to do negative 1 times x, which is negative x. Right, so I did this times this, and that got me this. And now I'm going to do negative 1 times negative 3, and that gets me positive 3. Alright, and remember we subtract, so it's going to change the sign. This changes to positive, this changes to negative. These cancel out, so that means our remainder is 0. Okay, so that means that this divided by this equals this. Okay, so basically, and it's kind of factoring in a way, so we just basically took the original of this, right? So x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3 equals x minus 3, which is this, times x squared minus 1, which is this, right? Alright, and remember, we're not done. If you look, we don't have x squared minus 1 there, right? And the reason why is because this is something we've done before. We know how to factor this, right? And so that's a difference of 2 squares. So we put x here, and we're looking for the square root of 1, which is 1. And then we put a plus and a minus, and that's it, right? So these are all the factors of this, okay? And so now we already have this one figured out, right? Now we just have to look up here for these two, and we see that this is one of them, and this is one of them. All right. So that's how you do number 1. Yeah, this is definitely something new with the long division, but it's not too bad. Just something you got to kind of get used to. And there's always one question on the Park Like It, the NMTA. So if you want to see more examples, I have some videos on some previous released items that involve polynomial long division. But that's just a quick run through of it.